Always good advice. Thanks, Bruce. And that wraps it up for us at 4. Kelly?
And we thank you for making us your choice for news at 4 o'clock. And the news continues now on a very, very big news day at 5 o'clock with Paul Moyer and Colleen Williams. Paul.
It sure is, Kelly and Chuck. Thank you. We'll take it right here. Up next tonight, he could be the pivotal witness in the O.J. Simpson trial. He is refusing to answer any questions. Former Detective Mark Furman takes the fifth. What this means to the O.J. Simpson trial coming up next. Also, growing anger over those Furman tapes, a protest that claims that Judge Ito was doing the wrong thing. Also tonight, a warning about women's clothes that can be dangerous. And the woman arrested with actor Hugh Grant gets ready to go to jail. The Channel 4 News at 5 begins right now.
Now, Paul Moyer, Colleen Williams, Fritz Coleman Weather, Fred Rogan Sports, live in Southern California. The Channel 4 News at 5.
Detective Furman, did you plant or manufacture any evidence in this case?
I assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
He is Detective Mark Furman. Once again, he is on the stand, but this time he refuses to talk. He won't answer any questions from the defense attorneys in O.J. Simpson, the trial. Good evening, everybody. It's 5 o'clock, and I'm Paul Moyer.
And I'm Colleen Williams.
Top story at 5 o'clock tonight, a compelling and explosive day in the courtroom in the O.J. Simpson trial today. Detective Mark Furman walks into that courtroom. Once again, he takes the stand. But this time, he also takes the fifth. He refuses to answer any questions at all. This is Mark Furman quietly walking into court today. The jury is not in the room. The defense asked him 4 questions, but he refuses to answer on the grounds that he may incriminate himself. And the defendant, O.J. Simpson, his attorneys are on the verge of resting their case. But one last pressing question remains. Will we hear his story from him? Will he take the stand? And this is the sound of protesters outside the courthouse chanting. They want Judge Ito to allow the jury to hear more of the Mark Furman tapes. We begin our live coverage tonight with 2 reports. Vernell Chapman has, of course, the day in court, and Manny Medrano has the story behind Mark Furman's decision. Let's begin with Vernell.
Well, members of the Simpson family left the courthouse angry and upset. One sister, Shirley Simpson Baker, was in tears. It was all the result of a stunning appearance in court by Mark Furman, who took the witness stand but refused to answer any questions.
Controversial retired detective Mark Furman surfaced inside the courtroom after several witnesses and his own recorded voice were used to show he had lied under oath. When called back to the stand, Furman refused to answer any questions.
Detective Furman, was the testimony that you gave at the preliminary hearing in this case completely truthful?
I wish to assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
Have you ever falsified a police report?
I wish to assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
Is it your intention to assert your Fifth Amendment privilege with respect to all questions that I ask you?
Yes.
Detective Furman, did you plant or manufacture any evidence in this case?
I assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
Furman was called to the stand outside the presence of the jury. He appeared for only about 5 minutes during a special hearing. Simpson's lawyers were arguing that certain key evidence linked to Furman should be thrown out. A motion to suppress evidence could affect the bloody glove found at Simpson's home, blood drops in the driveway, and blood evidence found in Simpson's Ford Bronco. The defense says the real issue now is Furman's credibility.
Every one of these were judgments or discoveries made by Detective Furman without any corroboration. He was by himself. He was alone. And his credibility stands alone with respect to each of those issues.
Given the assertion of the Fifth Amendment privilege, we will not conduct any further inquiry as to Detective Furman. But however, Detective, I am going to release you from further attendance this afternoon. However, you are still subject to recall.
Earlier today, the jury heard from this man, Roderick Hodge, who was once arrested by Furman. His testimony included another incident in which Furman used a racial slur.
You tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what Officer Furman said to you on this date in January of 1987.
Yes, sir. At the time, Officer Furman turned around, looked at me, and told me, "I told you we'd get you, nigger."
Did you hear what you heard him clearly?
Very clearly, sir.
Now, defense attorneys say O.J. Simpson himself was in tears in his holding cell following the appearance of Mark Fuhrman on the witness stand. Just a few minutes ago, the defense came down to give their reaction to what happened in court today. Among them, defense attorney Johnny Cochran talking to reporters.
A lead detective who claims the Fifth Amendment on at least 3 questions today and would on every question. The most salient of those questions was, did you plant evidence in this case? He refused to answer that question on the grounds it might tend to incriminate him. What more does anyone need out there to understand that we have now demonstrated this man had motive, he had opportunity, and now he's claimed the Fifth Amendment out of his own mouth. So those of you who don't want to believe need to reevaluate your consciences and look at this, because the American way is to be fair until the entire trial is heard.
Now, Fuhrman was released today, but is still subject to recall. The big question now is, will Mark Fuhrman be called back to the witness stand yet again to refuse to answer questions in the presence of the jury? Live from the courthouse downtown, I'm Fernell Chapman. Now back to the studio.
All right, Fernell, thank you. Today's brief time on the witness stand, taking the fifth, marked perhaps the lowest point of Mark Fuhrman's role in this case. You'll remember right after the murders, Mark Fuhrman was a key figure. He was on the scene the night of the murders, right after, and was credited with finding some of the most incriminating evidence against O.J. Simpson. But it was not long before another picture of Mark Fuhrman finally began to emerge, all capped off today with his refusing to deny that he planted evidence in this case. Our legal expert, Manny Medrano, is in the newsroom right now with an explanation of why Mark Fuhrman took the fifth. Manny, how incriminating is it? We just heard Johnny Cochran talking about it. How incriminating is it, the fact that he wouldn't admit that he didn't plant evidence? He took the fifth there.
Well, Colleen, just when you think you've seen it all in the Simpson trial, today the case reaches its highest point of melodrama when former LAPD detective Mark Fuhrman invokes his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination.
Detective Fuhrman, did you plant or manufacture any evidence in this case?
I assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
All right, based upon
Colleen, Paul, just an amazing fall from grace for this man. You may recall all of us lived with this case from the beginning, July of '94, when Detective Fuhrman jumps the fence, claiming exigent circumstances because of suspicion that perhaps O.J. Simpson is in danger, finding key incriminating evidence, and now the specter of perjury charges hanging over his head. Paul, Colleen?
All right, Manny, the jury was not in there when Mark Fuhrman took the fifth. We heard Johnny Cochran in his comments to reporters about 15 minutes ago say that if it's up to him, the jury is going to hear some or all of Mark Fuhrman taking the fifth, especially the question about did you plant evidence. What has to happen for the jury to hear some of that or be aware of the fact that Mark Fuhrman took the fifth?
Paul, no surprises with the defense strategy, as indicated through Cochran in his press conference, that he wants the jury to hear these words emanating from the mouth of Detective Mark Fuhrman. But here's the problem. California law basically says that you don't have to invoke the fifth in front of the jury. Now, the defense's response to that is going to be, Judge, this is an important case. This is clear indication of perjury. That's our belief. So the jury ought to hear this in order that they can evaluate the overall credibility of this witness.
Manny, again, the impact here of him not talking about the evidence, of taking the evidence or taking the fifth on that, doesn't that incriminate him on its own?
Well, it shouldn't, Colleen, because every citizen in this country has the right the right to invoke the right against self-incrimination. I have it. You have it. Indeed, remember Al Cowlings. He had it when he invoked the right not to testify in the O.J. Simpson case because he was concerned about prosecution for aiding and abetting a suspect from justice. So the bottom line is merely invoking it is not an indication of guilt, but obviously Johnny Cochran is trying to spin that a certain way as to suggest to the world and certainly to the jury someday
Manny,
that that's an indication of guilt. Yes.
Manny, very quickly, what will be the effect on the jury if they do find out about that?
Well, the bottom line is it'll be terrible for the DA and great for the defense if the jury gets to hear this because it's further indicia or an indicator of the fact that Fuhrman's testimony is just not believable at all.
Okay, our legal affairs expert, Manny Medrano, again, we thank you very much for being with us on the 5 o'clock. All the action was not in the courtroom today by any means. Outrage over Mark Fuhrman and those tape remarks triggered 2 street protests outside the courthouse against Judge Ito.
We want justice! We want justice!
Demonstrators were demanding that Judge Ito let the jury hear more of the Fuhrman tapes, not just the 2 excerpts, that the jury should decide for themselves and hear it all.
It will be very disappointing that after this is over, if members of the jury say, if I would have heard it all, maybe I would have acquitted him.
The judge is becoming a co-conspirator in the code of silence.
We should tell you the two protests were organized by several different groups, but all with the same basic agenda, basic media message. They want the jury to hear all the tapes, or certainly more than the two the judge has admitted so far into evidence. Colleen?
Let's take a look at where we stand right now in the O.J. Simpson case. As you may have seen here, live on Channel 4 this afternoon, now retired LAPD Detective Mark Furman invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and refused to answer questions from the defense about lying under oath and planting evidence. Earlier, Laura Hart McKinney and Roderick Hodge testified about Furman's use of the N-word. The Simpson defense team is now wrapping up its case, but one big question remains. Will O.J. Simpson testify in his own defense? Our legal expert, Manny Medrano, looks at the signals from the defense right here on the Channel 4 News, coming up in just a few minutes at 5:30. Paul.
All right, Colleen, also in court today, Estella Marie Thompson, the woman better known by the world now as Divine Brown. The prostitute busted with actor Hugh Grant has now changed her plea, but a judge says she'll go to jail. Gordon Tokamatsu's in the newsroom tonight with the sentence and why she got it. Gordon?
Well, Paul, Thompson's past caught up with her today, and as it turns out, her sentence for lewd conduct with actor Hugh Grant was the least of her worries.
So she's not
Once again, Estella Thompson was all smiles as she faced reporters. She talked of fame and how her life has changed since her highly publicized dalliance with actor Hugh Grant.
Are you finding yourself recognized as you go out in the street now? I mean, you've been
Very
out.
much so.
And what do people say to you when they see you?
The same thing you're saying.
What's that?
They love me.
From what she said, you'd hardly know she'd just been sentenced to 180 days in jail, part of a laundry list of court orders, 2 years probation, a $1,300 fine, community service, and an AIDS awareness class. Only the last two were handed down in connection to her lewd conduct charge with Grant.
Basically, I don't know what we're here for now is for items which were done or not done back in 1993, if you really want to be frank about what the situation is, and not for items that were done this year.
But some feminists say Thompson's sentence was too harsh all around compared to Grant's. He also pleaded no contest and got probation and a fine.
The bottom line is that women are on the street not by choice, but because of economic situations. And frankly, individuals like Mr. Grant, who drive around with the money soliciting these young women, are frankly more at fault for the dynamic.
Thompson herself doesn't seem too worried about the sentence at the moment. She says right now she's just looking for a suitable film role.
Good roles.
Dramatic?
Dramatic, sexual, you know, the good stuff.
Well, she's all smiles now, but Thompson's jail term is scheduled to start in early November. Her attorney says she's prepared for what the future holds. Colleen?
All right, Gordon, thank you. Coming up next right here, the vote to throw him out of the U.S. Senate. Up next, Senator Bob Packwood and the decision that could force him out.
Also, the cancer fighter you can buy in your local drugstore. Important new information about cancer and aspirin.
Plus, a nationwide warning, a nationwide recall about some very dangerous clothing. It's all coming up.
An extra exclusive, never-before-seen footage of O.J. Simpson's private moments.
Justin cuts cakes on O.J.
Only on Extra.
Tonight at 7, here on NBC4.
Here's what people are saying about Wild Bill's dinner extravaganza in Buena Park.
I loved the dancing and the singing. It was fantastic. Just loved it. Best show around.
Show was great, the food was great, and I'll tell you what, the little kids just loved it. Brilliant.
I like the Indian dancers. That was beautiful.
The Rope Girl was the best. Definitely gotta come and see the Rope Girl.
Come see how the West was fun. Call for reservations and showtimes.
It was fabulous. We had a fabulous time tonight. It was great. We loved it.
The Mercedes C-Class is just the kind of safe, dependable family car I see you in.
Oh, is that how you see me?
Yeah! I know you appreciate performance. And the handling, the road holding.
Handle this, Kevin.
And did I mention the price?
Okay, mention the price.
The C-Class starts under $32,000.
All right, guys, we got a 34-minute turnaround on this one. Let's do it.
It can be 5 below zero or coming down in buckets. It doesn't matter. It doesn't buy you another second out here. But time isn't everything. Getting the job done right is. And passengers don't really see this.
Have a late bag on your way back.
No problem, Jerry. I'll take care of it.
It's a rare moment when they see us at all. But not a second goes by that we're not looking out for them.
Your fiancé agreed to have a big wedding. Have a Haagen-Dazs. And he's already booked the place. Have some more. Elated or deflated, have a Haagen-Dazs, the finest ice cream in the world. Loaded with rich vanilla, lots of sumptuous chocolate, overflowing with fresh cream, each with nothing artificial. So every mouthful is smooth, creamy, and incredibly delicious. Good moments or not so good. Have a Haagen-Dazs. It's just perfect.
Deputies from San Bernardino in Seattle today working on possible links between brutal murders here in California and some in Washington state. Authorities think a man suspected of killing a local family of 5 may be linked to those other murders. Greg Weissman has the story.
It's been 4 days now since 18-year-old Samrath Pan, a Cambodian national and reputed gang member, was arrested for robbery in Long Beach. Shortly after, police linked him to this crime scene in San Bernardino. August 10th, 5 members of a Vietnamese family killed execution style in what police describe as a home invasion robbery. Now police believe Samrath Pan, the prime suspect in those killings, may be connected to as many as 10 murders up and down the West Coast. Information that has sent detectives from San Bernardino to Seattle looking for answers.
No, it would be pure speculation at this point to say that he is in fact involved in the crimes that they're looking into.
This triple slang near Seattle is one of the multiple murders Pan may be linked to. The Ann family found murdered inside their Linwood home July 4th. And in Sacramento, 2 murdered at this apartment complex where robbers shot and wounded a woman, then killed her 47-year-old husband and his 74-year-old father. Authorities are calling these killings the I-5 murders, all occurring in communities just off the Interstate 5 corridor. All the victims were Asian, the common thread, according to police, that initially linked Pan to the crimes. Speculating, they say, the killings may be gang-related.
There is some similarities, obviously, in the 2 cases. That's why we're talking with them and working with them just to check and see if there is any correlation between what happened there and what happened in our city.
Samrath Pan remains jailed here at West Valley Detention Center, already facing 5 counts of murder. And if detectives can link him to the Sacramento and Seattle killings, those charges could number 10. Greg Weissman, Channel 4 News, Rancho Cucamonga.
We understand at this point that those San Bernardino deputies are expected to be working with Seattle police at least through the end of this week.
Senator Bob Packwood is fighting for his political life, his job tonight. This after the Ethics Committee voted unanimously today to expel him from the U.S. Senate. The senator got the word late this afternoon and quickly called a news conference. There he blasted the committee for its decision, calling it, and I quote here, totally and absolutely outrageous. He said he flatly refused to step down.
Weeks ago, I would like to have a public hearing. I would like the public to hear about the diaries and how they were kept and how the committee got the originals and how they were never misled.
As you probably know, Senator Packwood has been accused of a string of sexual misconduct charges from a total of 17 women. Colleen.
Coming up next right here, the urgent search for some missing explosives. Explosives apparently stolen from a big quarry. We will tell you why people are so worried about this. Coming up next.
And look who's heading back to jail because of what he did in Hollywood. The latest on Joey B. coming up next.
Well, now that we're changing from KNBC to NBC4, it's our job to get rid of all these Ks. Good luck.
Why do they think we got time to do this?
Because the weather never changes and our football teams have left town.
Okay, hey, maybe Kelly Lang would take some. She uses Ks.
Great idea.
And Wendy Takuda.
2 brains are better than 1, Fred.
And Paul Moyer.
There is no K in Moyer.
It's silent.
Hey!
Make that 1 brain.
Hey, where you want the next 10 loads of K's?
You said it was going to be last winter. It wasn't last winter. You said it was going to be last spring. It wasn't. You said it was going to be summer. Summer's gone. Come on, now's the time. Because if you join Weight Watchers now, you'll register free and get the fall guarantee. Lose at least 15 pounds in 10 weeks, or meetings are free until you do. Weight Watchers has helped over 1 million people lose weight this year alone. So stop putting it off and start taking it off. Call now. Get free registration and the fall guarantee.
Seniors, get the card that saves you money. 10% off the first time you use it. 2% discount for paying your bill on time. An extra 3% discount on special Senior Wednesdays. Club Osh from Orchard. This card saves you money.
Now at Orchard, find the Weber One Touch Kettle Charcoal Grill in 3 colors, just $89.99. And pick up Scott's Winterizer Lawn Fertilizer. Cover 5,000 square feet for just $9.99. Orchard, complete hardware and garden.
If you can see it in your mind's eye, you can find it at Stroud's Fall Sale. Now, prices on quality linens drop even lower. All sale items 15 to 40% below department stores' white sale prices. Get extra savings on favorite fashion ensembles, totally coordinated for the way you live. Save an extra 15% on Crocille's complete Melbourne ensemble. Save an extra $50 on Fendi Queen comforters. Get extra savings on all these complete designer ensembles now at Stroud's, the linen experts.
A doctor in Woodland Hills has pleaded not guilty to gunning down his ex-wife at the LA County Courthouse. Harry Zillig, seen here in court today, is accused of shooting his ex-wife, Eileen, near a courthouse escalator last Friday while their 6-year-old daughter looked on in terror. And tragically, that little 6-year-old eventually could be called as a witness.
That's a possibility. However, we have a concern because we don't want to put her through more trauma. And so we're not decided at this time as to whether or not she's going to testify.
Eileen Zillig had sought and got a restraining order against her husband. The shooting has sparked safety concerns at the county courthouse, as you know, which does not yet have metal detectors. If convicted, Zillig could face up to 35 years in prison.
Meantime, concern tonight over a big load of missing explosives, hundreds of pounds of explosives, enough, in fact, to cause a massive explosion. Officials say thieves broke into the rock quarry in the Santa Clarita Valley and made off with 9 big boxes full of material similar to dynamite, nearly half a ton, all missing.
Technicians can't stress the importance or the danger of these explosives enough, and they're asking the public, if anyone sees these boxes, not to touch them, but to notify their local law enforcement agency.
Now, the company uses the explosives to blast away rock from the San Gabriel Mountains. The 9 boxes were marked with the words Dino Explosives, and those were printed on the side.
It is now back to jail for Joey Buttafuoco. A New York judge found today that Buttafuoco had violated his parole as a result of a solicitation conviction in Los Angeles. That was 2 months ago. Buttafuoco did not appear to be a happy camper inside the courtroom today, as his lawyer argued for relief.
Clearly, the law states that simply because he committed a B misdemeanor, that's not automatically a violation. And then the issue has to come into the court, well, what has he done with his life besides this unfortunate incident?
Joey Buttafuoco ordered to return for sentencing on September the 15th. He could get eventually up to 4 years in jail.
Residents of Puerto Rico are counting their blessings this evening, grateful they escaped the full force of Hurricane Luis. The fringes of the storm hit the island early today. Authorities say property owners in Puerto Rico were well prepared for this storm, but when it finally arrived, they rode it out. There was some damage in San Juan, but it was minor compared to the devastation on the neighboring island of Antigua. The governor of Puerto Rico is helping to organize a relief this evening for that island. Late today, the National Weather Service downgraded its hurricane warning to a tropical storm warning, but only for Puerto Rico. Luis itself is still a very powerful hurricane.
It sure is. And Fritz has been tracking a lot of storms lately, including Luis, and we'll have more on that. And also a live look outside. Now, when will we get some relief from the heat? Maybe Fritz has got some good news. We'll find out. He's next.
And inside the courtroom, will O.J. Simpson tell the jury his side of the story? The new clues at 5:30.
This AccuWeather update is sponsored by HealthNet, California's health plan.
We take 36,000 breaths a day, and every once in a while, we hold one. Our hearts beat 4,000 times an hour, and sometimes skip a beat. We hear a million sounds, touch 1,000 textures, all of which makes life as sweet as it is, and all the sweeter when we are well. Be well with HealthNet.
The New York Times, Rolling Stone, Newsweek, USA Today, and Siskel and Ebert all agree. And on September 15th, one of the most critically acclaimed films of the year returns to the screen for a special limited theatrical engagement. Mel Gibson,
Braveheart, rated R. Limited engagement starts Friday, September 15th at select theaters.
That's rather personal.
How much do you spend every year on long distance?
Could be a small fortune.
More than $1,000.
How'd you like to get some of that back?
Certainement.
Say again?
What do I have to do?
Just get Sprint Cents International. Now, on top of simply great rates to countries around the world, you'll get cash back every year you're with Sprint, so it pays to stay.
Really fabulous to get cash back. I would call more often.
Oh, I'll go for a vacation.
Cash is good.
What are you going to do with the money you get back from Sprint?
Call for Sprint Cents International. Now with cash back.
Well, as an older car, even though I've got a couple of scratches, it's nice to have the scratches clean. But, you know, every part of me has to be clean. And part of that is the inner workings of my my engine. But Chevron with Techron helps clean me and keep my emissions low, which is real important in my line of work, being a car.
Nothing cleans your engine better than new Chevron with Techron. Chevron, simply smarter.
Together we are shining. Together we're the best. Our future's so much brighter. Los Angeles, Los Angeles, Los Angeles, Los Angeles, Los Angeles.
You know, we've all been whining about the weather around here. Now we realize you haven't really been paying attention to it. You've been busy dumping all those Ks in front of KNBC.
That's right. That's right. You know what the management had Fred and I doing today? Taking all the Ks out of the Burbank phone book.
Oh.
You know what? You might be able to fence those Ks and get some cash.
Can you
I
spell
don't know.
cool, K-O-O-L?
Yes, you can. Only I'll have no opportunity to use it for the next couple of days. Have we really been whining? No, that's all right.
Well, if you
Don't
have
worry
it,
about
I have enough for both
It's
of us.
okay. You have every reason to whine, only because we've predicted cooling trends that haven't happened. But I've got to tell you, in the next 5 days, we're only going to have minor cooling at some points. That, luckily, will be over the weekend. But it's not a pretty picture. This is not an easy job. Outside now to first a downtown shot. Let's get a vista of the city. And just long enough to recognize that little smog inversion there. And just when that becomes depressing, we'll take it down to the beach, to the Venice Beach Cam, and take a look at a refreshing little sea breeze, whatever there is, not enough to cool us off, certainly. One lone swimmer headed out there to catch whatever little lapping wake there is. Here are the numbers to show you this afternoon. We had a high of 96 today and a low 76. This is certainly familiar territory. 92 right now, relative humidity 30%. Barometer 29.92 inches and falling. Burbank Airport this hour registering south winds at 12 miles an hour. Normal high 83, low 65. Sun up tomorrow morning at 6:30 and setting again at 7:11. On now to take a look at the latest on Luis. Nothing but good news concerning Luis this afternoon, we're happy to say. Still centered about 140 miles north-northeast of San Juan this afternoon. Still with 125-mile-an-hour winds. Still moving northwest at 10 miles an hour. The good news is that tomorrow, this thing is going to take even more of a northerly track. There is a storm in the southeastern United States that will deflect it away, refuse it admission to the eastern United States, which is just fabulous news. Still, the Caribbean is not out of the woods. From Antigua to Puerto Rico, still 4 to 8 inches of rain are possible. But the worst of the threat of what could have been the strongest hurricane in decades seems to be passing very quickly. We're just extremely lucky on this one, folks. Let's go now to our local weather. Only minor cooling through the beginning of next week. Really, we'll pull it down for a couple of degrees over the weekend. You may not even feel it in the valleys. The big weather news really for us is the monsoonal flow, the southerly flow of moist, unstable tropical air. Once again, this afternoon, mountain and desert thunderstorms have erupted. Showers and thunder showers detected over the last couple of hours, as a matter of fact, from 25 miles south of the San Jacinto Range to down near Joshua Tree National Monument. That could be the case next couple of days. Afternoon thunderstorms popping up. You never know where. We call them popcorn thunderstorms, a continuation of the monsoonal flow. Same weather until the weekend. Let's go look at the air quality. Same air quality we've had the last several days. Unhealthful smog levels inland. Only the mountains getting good air. Upper 60s to low and mid 70s. 58 degrees overnight tonight in the mountains, 70 in the low desert. Highs tomorrow, 100, but only in the warmer valley spots like the Santa Clarita Valley and the Inland Empire. Still 80 at the beach in places like Manhattan Beach and Avalon. Little or no marine layer. Look at those 90s. We thought we'd be close to normal, being 83, 84 degrees. We're not even going to come close to it. Pulling it down to 88 is going to seem like a cooling trend, and we'll all wear sweaters to work.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
While you're getting rid of the K's, get rid of the 9s.
No,
too.
good point.
Back to 7s.
We'll do that.
All right, man, thanks. Channel 4 News at 5:30 is coming up next tonight. We'll have new details on Mark Furman's decision to take the fifth. Also, O.J. Simpson, and whether or not he will tell his story to the jury. The decision may have already been made.
Also, the cancer fighter you can buy at your drugstore. Important new information on aspirin and cancer.
Plus, the nationwide alert about dangerous clothes. All ahead in the next half hour.
That's far enough.
Sheriff! Those ain't no ordinary eggs. Them's California grade AA eggs.
Freshest eggs you can buy.
Well, I guess you eggs are okay.
Extra, extra! Reno is our Kmart's biggest Hoover sale of the year!
Where Hoover prices start as low as $29.99 for a limited time only at Kmart.
There's a place unique in the world where the breeze is gentle, the sea crystal clear, and sunsets light the way to a million jewels beneath Diamond Head. Here, the palaces of kings and the monuments for heroes await you, and Hawaiian Airlines vacations can take you there. Waikiki and Oahu. 6 days, 5 nights, from just $412 per person, including airfare. Call 1-800-GO-HAWAII, extension 77, for a free Hawaiian Airlines vacation travel planner for Waikiki and Oahu, where the beach is just the beginning, in the islands of Hawaii. 1-800-GO-HAWAII, extension 77.
With the Shell MasterCard from Chemical Bank, there's a payoff once a month, not once a year like some cards. Every 30 days, you can get free Shell gasoline. You don't have to wait years for it to amount to something. So don't waste time on other cards. Get the card that can pay off every month. The Shell MasterCard from Chemical Bank. Look for an offer in the mail or pick up an application at a Shell station.
Jess Marlowe, Wendy Takuda, Fritz Coleman, and Fred Rogan tonight at 6. Now, Paul Moyer, Colleen Williams, Fritz Coleman weather, Fred Rogan sports. Live in Southern California, the Channel 4 News at 5:30.
It is a moment of drama inside the courtroom. For weeks, court watchers have heard this man's name, even his voice on the explosive so-called Furman tapes. But now Detective Mark Furman, former detective of the LAPD, takes the stand again in O.J. Simpson, the trial. Good evening once again. I'm Paul Moyer.
And I'm Colleen Williams. And our top story here at 5:30 today, high drama in the courtroom in the O.J. Simpson trial today. Detective Mark Furman takes the witness stand and then takes the Fifth Amendment on the grounds that he may incriminate himself. The jury was not in the room when he took the witness stand. The defense asked Furman 4 questions. He refused to answer. This 4th question promises, however, to be the most damaging if the jury ever hears it.
Detective Furman, did you plant or manufacture any evidence in this case?
I assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
Detective Mark Furman takes the Fifth Amendment and refuses to answer any questions about lying under oath and planting evidence. O.J. Simpson's attorneys say Mark Furman's refusal to answer those questions on the witness stand is more evidence of police misconduct. Earlier in the day, Laura Hart McKinney and Roderick Hodge testified about Furman using the N-word. Court will be back in session tomorrow morning. Paul.
Colleen, obviously today all the attention inside the courtroom was focused on former detective Mark Furman. But the star player, the major player in this case, is still the defendant, O.J. Simpson. And there's a very big question remaining. Will he or will he not testify? More on that tonight from our legal expert, Manuel Medrano. I guess if you're a betting man after today, you'd have to say no.
Probably more unlikely than not, but I can tell you this from my days as a prosecutor, you were always wondering whether or not the defense, on the verge of ending their case, was going to put O.J. Simpson or their client on the stand in his own defense. Prosecutors have been ready to cross-examine O.J. Simpson for months. The defense knows that, so Simpson and his lawyers have to decide whether or not to put the Football Hall of Famer on the stand. It's certainly enticing. Having Simpson testify would rejuvenate Simpson's celebrityhood and stature in the eyes of the jury, and might give jurors all they need to acquit Simpson. But if Simpson testifies, he exposes himself to a legal minefield. First, Simpson will have to withstand tough cross-examination by Marcia Clark or Chris Darden, experienced prosecutors who have had months to prepare for Simpson's testimony. Second, depending on what Simpson says on direct, he might open the door on cross for the admission of other evidence that otherwise might not have come in. For example, certain incidents of spouse abuse that Judge Ito previously ruled inadmissible might now be introduced by prosecutors. Finally, depending on what Simpson says, prosecutors might try to introduce the taped interview that Simpson gave to police, as well as evidence of the infamous low-speed chase. Now with today's amazing turn of events with O.J. Simpson, with Detective Mark Furman invoking his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, it truly now opens up a can of worms as to whether or not O.J. Simpson will testify. If I was a betting man, I would never put him on the stand.
Right.
He could not handle cross-examination.
Right. I agree with that.
Okay, Manny, thank you. The O.J. Simpson case is certainly not the first time Detective Mark Furman has been embroiled in controversy. In fact, as far back as 1978, Furman was involved in a case of alleged police brutality. Right now, Laurel Erickson is in the newsroom with more on the details of what happened at that point in time. Laurel?
Well, what has emerged is a letter written by a young civil rights attorney who may have been the first to call for a federal investigation into Furman's activities. That man is now a private attorney representing a 14-year-old young man, his family, a young man who was shot dead recently by LAPD. In his screenplay interviews, Mark Furman bragged about beating young men to a pulp in a Hollenbeck housing project in 1978. This letter, written a few weeks later on December 5th, 1978, demands a federal civil rights investigation into a handful of cops, described as dangerous, cowboy mentality, armed with badges, guns, and sick racist feelings. One of those cops was LAPD officer Mark Furman. The attorney who wrote the letter, Anthony Rodriguez.
It is not something that was concocted today or yesterday. That letter has Furman's name in 1978.
Rodriguez says LAPD terrorized the housing project, first broke into 2 homes and beat up 3 young men.
They pulled him out of his bed. They beat him so severely that there was blood all over the place. And then they forced him to walk a gauntlet. And as he walked the gauntlet, they beat him with sticks, fists, feet.
The letter details days of police crackdown and recounts the station house beating of 2 young men.
One of the officers identified by Morales and his companion was Officer Furman.
There's nothing now to indicate that anything that was done in 78 was done wrong.
When he starts prosecuting people for remaining silent, then we will, I think, pass judgment. But in the meantime, everything is just words.
Now, ironically, this information was sent to 2 men at the district attorney's office. Johnny Cochran, now defense attorney for O.J. Simpson, and Gil Garcetti, who worked for Cochran, who is now the district attorney. Almost 20 years later, both of these men are still embroiled in a race controversy over the same officer who is threatening the entire O.J. Simpson case. Back to you in the studio.
Very interesting, Laurel.
Thank you.
Coming up later, we'll have much more on the O.J. Simpson trial. The Fifth Amendment. Former Detective Mark Furman invoked it. But what does it mean for the defense and the prosecution here? Where do they go from here on the Furman issue? That's all coming up at 7:30 this evening. We'll see you then. Paul.
Colleen, as we told you a few minutes ago, Senator Bob Packwood is fighting an effort to expel him from the U.S. Senate. He has been, as you know, at the center of a sexual harassment controversy for months now. And that's the topic of Jess Marlowe's commentary for us tonight. Jess?
Thanks, Paul. It was a rare act of unanimity when Democrats and Republicans on the Senate Ethics Committee agreed that Packwood should be expelled from the Senate. It would be the first time since the Civil War such an action has been taken. The last time involved a charge of treason. Packwood has been accused by 17 women of sexually harassing them, including unwanted kissing and fondling. His defense all too often has consisted of little more than "I was too drunk to remember." The latest charge from a young woman who was, as a 17-year-old intern, said she was grabbed and kissed by the senator when he went to her home. That appears to have been enough even for the remaining Packwood defenders. Is Packwood contrite? Tonight his response is that the Ethics Committee's decision makes the Inquisition look like a study in fairness. Apparently the feminist charge, "he just doesn't get it," fits Packwood like a glove. In truth, the power and prestige of a seat in the U.S. Senate, aggrandized by many years of tenure, has produced more than its share of men for whom power was, as Henry Kissinger once said, the ultimate aphrodisiac. The pattern of conduct the Ethics Committee cited and the number of complaints over the years appears to have been sufficient to produce today's vote and to deny Packwood his request, widely believed to have been a delaying tactic, for public hearings, a situation he had earlier sought to avoid. Tonight, Packwood whines that he was not given a chance to confront his accusers. The truth is, he and a rapidly diminishing number of his defenders have long waged a campaign to discredit various of the complainants. A two-thirds vote is tough to achieve anywhere these days, but when the full Senate considers Packwood's expulsion, this one should be an easy call. I'm Jess Marlowe. That's what I think.
All right, Jess, thank you. Coming up next right here, the medical research that affects all of us. We will tell you what's new about aspirin and cancer.
Are you frustrated and trying to buy a new car but can't because of bankruptcies, judgments, repossessions, bad credit, no credit at all? No problem. $500 delivers you a new car or truck at Foothill Nissan. Hey, we financed over 35,000 customers with credit problems. Come see the Second Chance people at Foothill Nissan. 3333 Foothill Boulevard in La Crescenta, or call us 687-7000. Come see the Second Chance people at Foothill Nissan.
Recently, an independent research study determined Lucky means low prices to more shoppers than any other full-service supermarket.
Where do you find the really big savings at Lucky?
That's called a key buy.
The key buys. What is a key buy?
Key buy is good value. Saves me lots of money.
How much money can I save on a key buy?
Up to 35%.
What brings you to the Lucky today?
Obviously, the key buys.
Lucky shoppers save more than $3 million a week on key buy.
Really? $3 million a week?
Another reason why Lucky means low prices.
Anybody see my keys?
Stroke victims, here's good news.
Everything is back to normal, the leg too.
In 1 month, David has had phenomenal success. He's using his right side that never had been moved before in 7 years.
Since we've come to the Steam Block Clinic, we're walking up to 2 miles a day.
For free information about the stroke recovery program, call 1-800-274-9096.
1, 2. Good evening, everybody. We're to honor John Santos, the youngest executive to escape. Retire from our firm. And at this point, the only thing we can say to you, John, is thanks. Enjoy the islands. You'll be missed. And by the way, who gets your office? John, congratulations. There's to you.
Listen up, this is important.
There is nothing my husband loves more than sports, and boy, does he work up an appetite.
Let me tell you, I get hungry. That's why new Stouffer's Hearty Portions is a good idea.
It's hearty, it's big portions.
2 pieces of chicken and all those mashed potatoes.
Stouffer's Salisbury steak. It tastes like homemade. It's a great value.
New Stouffer's Hearty Portions. It's the right size for me.
Stouffer's, nothing comes closer to home.
The night skies over Bosnia are clearing tonight, and NATO warplanes are again bombing Serbian military targets in and around Sarajevo. Today, the NATO Air Command released video of yesterday's airstrikes. Cameras in the cockpits of French and American planes show laser-guided bombs and rockets striking Bosnian Serb ammunition dumps and communication centers as well. Some targets are in Serb-held suburbs outside Sarajevo. Others are in the Bosnian Serbs' capital of Pali. NATO commanders say the airstrikes will continue until Serbian heavy artillery is finally moved at least 12.5 miles away from Sarajevo. So far, the UN has been unable to confirm reports of civilian casualties in the target areas.
New study out today about the benefits of aspirin. This time it says aspirin could be a cancer fighter. Researchers studied the long-term effects of aspirin on women. They really aren't sure how it might work in the body, but their statistics suggest that aspirin protects against lower intestinal cancer. Women who took 2 or more aspirins per week for 10 years had a 30% decrease in the risk of colorectal cancer. Women who took it for 20 years had a 44% decreased risk. Now, the downside here is that aspirin can irritate your stomach and cause problems with ulcers. There's also no apparent cancer-fighting benefit unless you take aspirin for several years.
Colleen, let's go up to the newsroom and check in with our colleague Wendy Dakuta, see what's planned for the Channel 4 News tonight at 6 o'clock. Hello, Wendy.
Hello, Paul. A key prosecution witness comes back to the O.J. Simpson trial, but this time he has only one answer for the defense. At 6 o'clock, why Simpson's attorneys want Mark Fuhrman on the stand in front of the jury. Also, a surprising new effort to rehabilitate the image of the LAPD. It's going to be fast-paced and realistic and on television. And the hunt is on this evening for a huge cache of explosives large enough to do something like this. We are going to explain how they disappeared. Those stories and also Prince Will's first day of school, too. That's when we join you at 6 o'clock. Jess and I will see you then. Back to you.
I was waiting to hear about that, weren't you?
Yep, and I will.
Coming up next right here, women's scarves that can be very dangerous. We'll tell you about the nationwide warning on this, the nationwide recall.
And next, coming up tonight, it's Fred Cal Ripken Jr. You know what he's doing in the process of setting the new Ironman record. Fred with a look at Cal now and then.
Some places make you lug heavy items to the register. At Orchard, all you have to carry is this. Then drive to the pickup station where they'll load it for you. Orchard, complete hardware and garden.
Now at Orchard, find the economical and durable Hamlet Storage Shed from Arrow, just $149. And find heavy-duty 24-inch push brooms from Harper, 3 styles starting at $22.99. Orchard, complete hardware and garden.
Join tens of thousands of caring people for AIDS Walk Los Angeles.
Sunday, September 17th. To register for this 10K walkathon, call 466-WALK, benefiting AIDS Project Los Angeles.
Waiting for the ultimate chicken finger food? Try new Colonel's Crispy Strips from KFC. Juicy, all-white meat chicken, freshly prepared with our special extra tasty crispy recipe. New Colonel's Crispy Strips are good enough to be a meal, so eat them with a knife and fork, if you can wait that long.
Everybody needs a little KFC.
And for a mealtime treat, bring home 3 Colonel's Crispy Strips, mashed potatoes and gravy, coleslaw and a biscuit, all for just $2.99.
We at Oldsmobile don't like to boast, but our 88 was named a Consumer's Digest Best Buy for the 5th straight year. Me too. And to celebrate, we're now offering this special limited time lease price of only $279 per month. Not to mention dual airbags, ABS, and a 205 horsepower V6. In our humble opinion, you betcha. It's your money.
If you have minor arthritis pain, then keep your eyes on this hand, and you'll see something really remarkable. A pain reliever that can turn up the heat on arthritis. Just minutes after applying Ultra Strength Bengay, you can actually see the heat using thermographic photography. That's because Ultra Strength Bengay is the strongest, most advanced Bengay ever, and the only one with the powerful heating relief of 3 pain relievers, and it'll last for hours. Try Ultra Strength Bengay and turn up the heat on arthritis.
Fred Rogan's here. I'll bet you Cal Ripken's glad to get this behind him.
He probably is. I
Yeah.
mean, he's been thinking about it for so long, and it's finally here. Orioles shortstop Cal Ripken Jr. making history right now against the Angels in Baltimore. He is playing in his 2,131st straight game, breaking Lou Gehrig's record. Before tonight's game at Camden Yards, Ripken met in the clubhouse with President Clinton and Vice President Gore. He entertained the first families as well. Ripken took the field about 4:45 our time. The game is now in the 3rd with the score tied at 1. Ripken will officially set the record with game 2,131 in the 5th inning. Highlights at 11 and update next hour. Last night in game number 2,130, Ripken homered in the 6th of the Orioles' 8-0 victory. He's come a long way from his first days in baseball. Back in '81, he played for the minor league Rochester Red Wings. Listen to what he had to say back then about making the bigs.
I'm learning the pitchers. I'm learning how to hit the ball to right field, how to hit the ball to left field, and learn how to look for a certain pitch in a certain situation. So all of that, is helping me become a better ball player, and maybe someday soon I'll be in a big league uniform.
Oh, gosh.
Still pretty loud.
Yep. According to the Cal Watch, time is up. He's setting the mark with game 2,131 tonight. Highlights at 11.
Sounds like Big Ben.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you, it's ticking. Angels began the night 5.5 up on the Mariners in the AL West. Dodgers with a 1-game lead over the Rockies in the NL West. Rockies took on the Cubs today at Wrigley. The wild card was on the line. Still sounds like football to us. Bottom of the 2nd, Cubs looking to pad a 3-1 lead. Todd Zeile popped one high into shallow right. Eric Young at 2nd had a beat on the ball, but the ball beat him. Brian McRae scored. Cubs led 4-1. Top of the 3rd, Rocks came back and took control, scored 5 to take the lead for good. Bases loading for Jason Bates. He doubled home 3 runs to cap the rally. Rockies won at 10-4. Dodgers need a win tonight over the Phillies to keep sole possession of first place. Other games in the books, Padres beat the Mets 6-5. Braves, magic number down to 7 with a 6-1 win over the Cards, and the Twins down the Tigers 9-1. College football and Saturday's big win over Miami. UCLA quarterback Ryan Fiend barely remembers this hit from Hurricane linebacker Kennard Lang. Fiend needed stitches for a cut on his chin. He also suffered a concussion that has kept him sidelined from practice so far this week.
Oh yeah, I've seen it in slow motion, matter of fact. It was a great hit. I think he has Kennard Lang, and he's a great defensive end. I set him up perfect. I jumped up when I was throwing and gave him a career hit.
Also a concern for the next game at BYU, top offensive lineman Jonathan Ogden also suffered a concussion against Miami.
Anything can happen to anybody. I'm proof of that. I didn't think I could get hurt really either until that.
Well, we'll keep an eye on them. At the U.S. Open, Monica Seles and Conchita Martinez won to set up a meeting in the semis. Boris Becker also won. Andre Agassi plays tonight. Finally, wild moment today in cycling at the Tour of Spain. In the circle, two riders came together, collided, and wrecked. Normally, the riders make sure they're okay, then they check their bikes. Not this time, though. Ramon Gonzalez of Spain and Leonardo Sierra of Venezuela put on their demonstration of Ali Frazier 4. The two actually had a fight in the middle of the race and in the middle of the course. Neither guy was seriously hurt. Both ejected from the race. And who says cycling is not a contact
One guy had a reverse punch. You see that?
That was very impressive.
Punch while you twirl.
Yeah, well, only cyclists can do that.
I guess so.
Yeah.
All right, Fred, thanks. The Consumer Product Safety Commission is recalling, I bet you didn't know this, thousands of scarves because they're dangerous. Now, remember these pictures? Last year, the commission recalled these rayon chiffon skirts made in India. Now they've turned their attention to scarves made of the same fabric. Kelly Lang in the newsroom right now with more on the story. Kelly?
Yeah, very frightening, Colleen, to watch that fabric burn. The commission is recalling 370,000 scarves now, and it says that anyone who sells those scarves after today will be violating the Federal Flammable Fabrics Act. Now, that act is simply defined: if a fabric burns faster than a newspaper, it cannot be sold here in the United States.
Take a look at this. It's a scarf going up in flames in a matter of seconds. It is a frightening picture, but it's exactly what the Consumer Product Safety Commission said could happen to these scarves. The commission says they are so flammable they are truly a hazard. So every scarf like this one is being recalled. The scarves are made in India. They bear the label Fashionique 2. And the commission says many stores here in Southern California sell them, including Pier 1 Imports, TJ Maxx, Ross, Mervyn's, and Hit or Miss. Some Fashionique 2 scarves are safe, but on the ones that are not, the label reads Fashionique 2, made in India, and either 100% rayon or 65% rayon and 35% metallic fiber.
The first thing to remember, if you believe you have a scarf that could be part of this recall, is don't wear it. Take it back to the place where you bought it.
The commission says the store should give you a refund or credit to select something else. If you have questions, you can call the Consumer Product Safety Commission hotline. That number is 1-800-638-2772.
These scarves are very pretty, very attractive. You see them everywhere. We should add that the government of India is cooperating with the U.S. investigation. Meantime, be sure you check those labels. Colleen, Paul?
Kelly, thank you very much. Still ahead for us tonight, his wife and son were killed by the FBI. Now he's gone to Washington for some answers.
A health plan should not be a luxury. A health plan should not be out of reach if you're on your own. A health plan should not just cover catastrophes. A health plan should not have a small choice of doctors. A health plan should not ignore individuals. That's why Foundation Health has a plan for individuals and their families. Now you don't need a group plan to get affordable health coverage. Call now for your free information kit and find out why over 600,000 Californians have already chosen Foundation Health. Call your agent, broker, or Foundation Health at 1-800-867-1166. The individual and family plan from Foundation Health. What a health plan should be.
Every night at the Schubert Theater in Los Angeles, the Beast comes to life. Discover the magic,
I want adventure in the great white zone.
the music,
No pain could be dear.
and the spectacle of the greatest love story ever told. Disney's Beauty and the Beast, now on stage at LA's Schubert Theater. For tickets, call 1-800-447-7400.
If you can see it in your mind's eye, you'll find it at Stroud's fall sale. Bed-in-a-bag sets include sheet set and comforter set, 6-piece twin, only $79.99 at Stroud's.
Save up to 80% by Factory Direct at the Jewelry Exchange in Orange County. Diamond tennis bracelets are just $200 per carat. Diamond studs are just $400 per carat. Anniversary bands are also just $400 per carat. The Jewelry Exchange imports diamonds direct from site holders and is the leading manufacturer of semi-mounts, wedding bands, pendants, earrings, and tennis bracelets. Only the Jewelry Exchange gives you both a low price and double value guarantee. The Jewelry Exchange in Orange County, 714-542-9000, 542-9000.
The U.S. Senate today began its investigation into a bloody FBI shootout in Idaho 3 years ago. Telling his story, the white separatist whose wife and son died in the gun battle. Our Chuck Henry in the newsroom tonight with more on the story for us. Chuck?
Randy Weaver says that he is not a hateful racist. The standoff and the shootout at his Idaho home 3 years ago was, according to Weaver, deliberate murder. Weaver wants now the FBI held accountable for the killing of his wife and son.
It was emotional and graphic testimony today as Weaver brought in the actual door and showed the bullet hole where his wife was killed. Weaver told the Senate committee how the day before he and his wife, Vicki, had gone to retrieve the body of their 14-year-old son who had just been killed by U.S. Marshals.
I was cussing and screaming and yelling and kissing him and holding him in my arms, and Vicki was walking around yelling. I don't know what she was yelling. I don't know what she was doing.
The following day, an FBI sharpshooter picked off Weaver's wife as she was standing near this door right next to her two daughters.
If I had taken one more step, he would have got all three of us, because I felt everything just hit my cheek. I thought I'd been shot.
The girls were screaming. I went over and picked the baby out of Vicki's arms and checked her out. She had blood in her hair.
The committee treated Weaver lightly today, saving the tough questioning about his racial white supremacist views until tomorrow. That's when the FBI will have a chance to explain how a minor gun charge escalated into an armed siege. And in addition to the Senate hearing, a criminal investigation into a possible FBI cover-up has already resulted in the suspension of several key witnesses. Paul and Colleen, back to you.
All right, Chuck, thank you. Still ahead here this evening, he took the fifth. At 6, former Detective Mark Furman refuses to answer questions in the O.J. Simpson trial.
And Colleen, next here, Judge Ito at a special ceremony to honor some special police officers.